Are you going through a big upheaval in your life? Do you plan to chase a dream? Will you be doing so shortly? Or are you just in a planning phase to change your life? If any of those apply, then this video is definitely for you, as I will share how I dramatically changed my own life and the psychological tools that I applied. And I'm sure that by the end of the video, you will see the benefit of it for you. It was a Friday afternoon when my whole entire life shifted. I was sitting in my corporate office, which I've been in corporate for 13 years as a human resource specialist, and it was 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I became slightly irritable because by 10 past 4, I thought to myself that this guy that I had an appointment with at 4 o'clock is not going to pitch. I was wrong, however. 10 minutes past 4, he slandered in. He didn't walk in. You know, some people just have this smooth entrance, and he had one of those. I looked at this guy and he had like funky island clothes on. Not a tie or a jacket or nothing like that. And I couldn't see over from my desk, but I was pretty sure that he must have been wearing sandals. So the guy didn't greet me, nothing. He just sat himself down and looked at me, and then he said, "So is that what you're going to do for the rest of your life?" I was absolutely speechless. At that point in my life, I knew better not to read a book by its cover. So I gave the guy a lot of slack. I looked at him and I said, "You know, what exactly do you mean by that?" And he said, "Well, you know, are you happy?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Is everything perfect?" I said, "Yeah, everything is perfect." And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Well, maybe that's why you should change." And I said, "But why do you want me to change? You don't even know me." And he said, "Well, in my life I came across a lot of people that were in a similar situation than yours. And some of them listened and some of them did not. And he said, you've got nothing to lose. Are you prepared to listen?" I said, "Yeah, shoot, guy. What do you want to tell me?" And he said, "Well, you know, why don't you just buy a small yacht and cross the Atlantic Ocean, sail to Brazil and then onto the Caribbean islands. And, you know, just sell everything that you've got. And to be able to do so, just go out and live." I didn't think much of it, so we had a meeting. That night I went home and I told my wife. And I said, "You know, this crazy oak said this afternoon." And she looked at me and she frowned and she said, "You know, I was actually thinking about talking to you about what are we going to do with our lives." And I said, "But what do you mean?" She said, "Haven't you realized that we're just in this rut? Everything is just too perfect. We've got this enormous house. We both have a car. We've got everything that we want. However, I feel empty inside. Every day I just stand up and go through the motions." And then it hit me like a sledgehammer. And I thought to myself, yeah, I've also been a zombie. I'm literally in zombie mode. This is what I do. And that was a shock. It was a shock to the culture because, you see, when we are in that perfect bubble, we can't see that for what it is. You need somebody objective from the outside to look in and to tell you what's going on. Now, when that happened, and two of them told me that in the same day, it was a cultural shock. Now, we spoke long into the night, that Friday night, about what she meant by that and how this idea that this guy had can maybe help us to accomplish that. The first psychological tool, looking back, is the tool of restarting. You know, you go into zombie mode, and then all of a sudden, when this guy talked to me, I started thinking about things like being reborn, just changing my entire life, changing my entire profession, doing something that I didn't even think might be possible. It is as if you come out of that bubble into this wonderful world that you've never ever seen before. And you literally you close one door behind you, and as you open this new door, it's just a wonderful feeling of all the light coming towards you. It is quite amazing. When I started really sitting down and thinking to myself, what a new life like that must be like. That's the other thing that happens, is as soon as that seed is planted, and this is an obstacle, a psychological obstacle, as soon as that happens, you get so very, very discontent with the old. I went through that weekend. We had a barbecue at friends, which we always had. So I had my drinks and my normal weekend stuff, and even that was in zombie mode. And I got so tired of this, and I told my wife, I said, how long have we been doing this? Like, what's wrong with us? Now, you see, what's wrong with us? All of a sudden, everything I found and thought about my current life was at fault. I didn't like the car that I was driving anymore. I didn't like my job anymore. I had problems with my colleagues. All of a sudden, these little things just crept in. And that is the other psychological thing that you need to be very careful about. If one is in a state like that and you're very discontent with the old, you will shoot yourself in the foot. You will self-sabotage. Now, as I progressed, I did exactly that. It was so bad in my job because I was visualizing just sailing into the sunset onto these wonderful islands that I started messing up at work, which eventually led to me being fired. Directly after that, in the process of being fired, I had an angina attack, and I found myself in an ambulance on my way to the hospital with my wife chasing behind. And the paramedic told me, he said, well, it's not up to me to say, but if I can, then I will suggest that you change your lifestyle. And I said, don't worry, we've already decided to do that, but maybe that's why I'm lying here. And he said, no, I don't think so. I think it's maybe your old life. And I told him what we planned to do, and he said, that's amazing, go for it. And then all of a sudden you get these people coming out of the woodwork and reinforcing that idea. We looked up a guy, a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing, and we drove through to him. And he told a story that how he purchased a yacht like 12 years ago, and he crossed the Atlantic Ocean alone, and where he went and how wonderful it was, and he should never have come back and all of that. So all of a sudden, that's the other psychological thing, is you will see that as you get in this stage, you will start to refocus. After the restart is over, then you start to shift your focus gradually away from the old onto the new. That's a wonderful process, because all of a sudden you start seeing all the opportunity, and that really is amazing. I was absolutely amazed by the process of refocusing on a new life, because it is as if you are being reborn. The last psychological tool is the one of awareness. I was never, up to then, aware that it's possible to take a small boat and sail across a big ocean. When my awareness shifted and I started realizing, hey man, this is actually real. This can be reality. Awareness is amazing. As soon as you become aware, then you have the opportunity to take your new awareness and to start doing the research, and then put everything, all your focus in there, and be one-minded. All of this led us to buy that boat, and we went. And at the end of this video, I will link some videos about those excursions for you. I really hope that this helps you in your life And please leave a comment regarding what your dream is or may be in the future. I would love to hear from you. Have a great day.